Welcome to another episode of Hudson Valley Pour. I'm Richard D'Ambrosio.
And I'm Todd Jennings, and we are here today in Monroe, New York at Apex Brewery. And we're going to talk with Dave Holm, sitting between us here. He is the owner of the brewery, along with his wife Rachel. He's also the head brewer. So he knows everything that goes on here in the brew house, and we'll definitely show you some footage and pieces of what Dave's brew house looks like. But Dave, first of all, thanks for spending some time with us today. Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was, your opening. You opened during COVID.
October 3rd of 2020.
Right. So, we talked about this. I remember seeing the sign out front in 2019, coming soon.
Things
Never
I've
coming.
learned, you never put an actual year on the coming sign because then you just curse yourself.
So just so that you know, we're here on 17M in Monroe.
Yeah.
So if you're coming on up Old 17 from Rockland, from New Jersey, from Westchester, if you're going to stay on Old 17, really easy. You just veer left at the split at the Wally Mart. Stay left. You can't miss Dave and the gang here at Apex. If you are coming on the throughway, you get off at exit
16.
16, and then make your way on over to 17.
Right. So, Dave, getting back to your opening, obviously you had some challenges during COVID. Tell us about the process. Tell us from start to finish what some of the things you went through and how you finally got to October 2020.
I mean, the whole story of construction and whatnot was a joy, and by joy I mean an absolute nightmare. Between government shutdowns, followed by COVID, everything was delayed. We wound up going through two different banks because the one bank dawdled because the whole government shut down and kind of delayed that, and then we wound up getting another bank, which finally got us going. And then we spent the next year basically finishing up construction here.
Was there a building here?
There was a building here, but it was an absolute shell. It was basically a pole barn with steel siding, but no insulation. It had maybe 100 amp single phase service in here. It was not really built out to be a brewery. It had three-quarter inch water main only. It was a bit of a nightmare. So
is it true they used to do the U-Haul rentals out of this building?
It was U-Haul rental and a tool. This was basically a glorified 30 by 80 tool shed.
Yeah.
We started by kind of taking down whatever was in here. The guy had an office in here. We basically took that out. We cut open the floors, ran all the drains we needed to do, did the upgrade on the electric, and basically put in a new water main, re-poured the floors, coated the floors, built a cooler. It's a process. In the middle of it, February of 2020, I hung all of the sheetrock here while I had COVID, which was awesome.
I also remember
you had COVID.
I had COVID.
And you were hanging sheetrock.
I hung this entire wall. It's 3 boards high. I hung it myself and a scissor lift because I had to get it done, and I did. And yeah, it was a mess. Not great.
So tell us about your acquisition of the brew house equipment, or at least some of it, because you did tell me that story, and I'd love for you to share it with the audience.
Oh, there's a couple pieces to that. One, I bought a brew house from a somewhat local person who didn't actually finish building it, which was awful. He didn't actually fulfill his contractual obligations on that. Also took a deposit on some fermenters, never delivered them. He's kind of a piece of garbage. We don't really like him around here. Then it was followed by, I basically was like, well, I don't want to wait for this guy anymore. He's not in contact. He's not talking about it. He's not answering questions. He's not delivering. So I literally found something out in Portland, Oregon.
Oregon, it's all
yeah,
right. Yeah.
And basically purchased the brew house, contracted Roadrunner Freight to bring it across country. Roadrunner Freight picked it up, got it to their distribution center, took one look at it, said, this is not freight ready. We have to take it back where it came from. But the brewery had, and as all brewery owners know, the minute you have floor space, you're like, woohoo, floor space, and you fill it with something else. Because the more production or whatever that you can get out of it, or more tasting room area, whatever it is, you suddenly have more floor space, you get excited about it. So they filled that space. They're like, well, there's nowhere for it to go. So I'm going back and forth with Roadrunner, and they basically said, well, you can come pick up your freight or you can abandon it. So I grabbed a friend from down in Philly. We flew out and met up in Portland. And then I rented the biggest Penske truck they had, loaded it all in the back, and drove it home.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
So So how big was the brew house initially?
So
how many barrel systems were you working with at that time?
So this brew house that we have is the brew house that we started with, the one from Portland. It's an oversized 5. So like the mash tun is really sized for a 5-barrel system. The kettle it will boil up to about 9 barrels.
So that's a pretty good sized batch.
Yeah, it's not a bad sized batch. And now that we've actually upsized our fermenters, we can actually max that out.
Right on, right on. So this is one thing I always like to ask, not just brewers and brewery owners, but anybody who gives a rat's tail about beer. When did it start for you? When did your craft beer journey begin?
So you mean like,
was there like an aha moment?
what was my introduction to craft beer, or like, when did I like kind of like enter into like, that concept of I was contemplating starting a brewery, or?
Well, when did the hook get into you for drinking craft versus the big beers?
I know exactly where that was. It was at Small's Jazz Club sometime in the late 1900s. And my brother was like, there's a Sierra Nevada beer. You gotta try it. And it was Sierra Nevada Pale, which is, I know a lot of people kind of go through that. That's like their intro craft beer back then.
Why not? Right?
Yeah, and to this day, like as long as it's not like a little old in the package, it's actually still a really great beer. So
yeah, as is Anchor.
Yep.
And even later entries from out in California, Loganithus was one that a lot of people I've heard started with, and that's fine.
If you get a chance, and I say this to anybody that like brings up Loganithus or Dogfish Head, read both of their books because they're hilarious. Like, and they're very different stories. It's like Sam from Dogfish Head tells the story from this very like look at all my successes. Whereas what was it, McGee, right?
I don't remember who it is for Loganithus.
I think it's McGee, if I remember correctly. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he basically tells every mistake he made along the way. He's like, here's all these mistakes I made. Somehow I made it.
So, when I think of San Plagione, I think the term crazy genius, because that's kind of what he is.
I mean, he started with a 10-barrel. No, sorry, not 10-barrel, 10-gallon. 10-gallon. Like, this guy had a 10-gallon, like, glorified homebrew setup in a kitchen in a restaurant. He rewrote all the laws of Delaware to actually get this going. And his journey from that, and then he got to a point where he was like brewing every day, just frantically trying to make beer. And then he eventually went out and bought some dairy equipment. So it's kind of this fascinating, journey from, 10 gallons, which is basically homebrew size, up to, this huge facility that he has down there.
And you bring up a point that is interesting, because I think a lot of general public doesn't understand that dairy equipment and brewery equipment are close cousins, right?
It's very close cousins,
Yeah.
And oftentimes you'll see some crossover as people are starting up, kind of like, lower barrier to entry breweries, like, with like not going out and spending, $300,000 to $500,000 on a brew house. They're spending a little bit less and kind of like, kind of kludging together something that makes it work. To be honest, our initial hot liquor tank was a converted, horizontal dairy tank. That has obviously changed since then.
And even homebrewers, when they start, they're using a dairy thermometer at home, right? So, yeah, very interesting. So, you have a background, well known to me anyway, in extreme sports.
Yeah.
For the audience, Dave has shown me some crazy videos of jumping out of airplanes and all sorts of other fun stuff. So, what I was wondering is whether that background had any influence or still has any influence in what you're doing here at the brew house?
I mean, honestly, there's this kind of like, a lot of people have risk aversion. I would say, like as a former extreme sports, and current extreme sports person, that there's a little bit more like willingness to kind of like try, and just kind of push it a little bit, and not necessarily stick to the same thing over and over again. So yeah.
Right.
I'd say it definitely hits there, and then honestly, like if you look around our tap room and everything, there is a bit of a roller derby theme. My wife and I met playing roller derby. I still play roller derby. I played for the Finnish national roller derby team for about 3 years. So yeah, I mean, I would say that it's still
The Finns have a national roller derby
They
team.
have two. They have a women's team and they have a men's team. So yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if derby people kind of think of themselves as being involved in an extreme sport. It's kind of
I would say it is. Yeah, it's
a lot of head knocking and elbowing and crazy stuff. Right. Well, that's good, and we'll show some photos of the rest of the room here for sure, so that you guys can get a look around. There's some great derby posters on the walls here. There's roller skates hanging behind the bar, and there's a couple beers that are on the menu right now that are Derby-inspired names. Over the whole course of the career here, there have been more than a few that have been inspired by Derby, such as Cut Track, and I even have one right now called Excessive Force. We're going to talk about our beers in a little bit, but let's talk about while we're talking about Derby, let's talk about your customer base. You've got a local and very, very loyal customer base. Talk about that, how you achieved it, and what you do to show your appreciation for that.
I mean, there's a couple ways that we've done that over the years. Now it's coming on 2 years, right? So like some of it is recognizing your locals, going above and beyond for them. Always be welcoming. It's funny how even just remembering a beer that somebody drinks is like such a little touch that people really get. And then on top of that, we've added a mug club.
Right, I wanted to talk about the mug club for sure.
Yeah, the mug club definitely helps.
So tell the audience what that's about.
So right now we have 2 tiers. We're actually changing that up a little bit this year. So right now we have basically like your standard tier, which gets you about an ounce more of beer for $1 less. Plus it gets you 10% off merch and a free beer when you join and a free beer on your birthday as well. So that's kind of your basic.
Damn it! I just missed my birthday.
Yeah. So and then the next tier up, you actually get 3 prepaid beers a month and a to-go package beer a month to go. And those are kind of our 2 tiers right now.
And they can find all about that at your website?
On the website, as well as, here in the tap room. We're always willing to talk about it. We have some QR codes around it if you want to scan those, or you can ask any of our bartenders.
Yeah, and I know a lot of other things that you do here to inspire loyalty and involvement and engagement with your client base is you have events.
We have events.
You had a cornhole tournament, I think, last weekend, right?
We do a cornhole tournament. We do trivia every Sunday. Right now we're doing music on Saturdays, through the end of October. I think we're going to actually pause that through the winter. But then we're going to add, I think, some other kind of interesting events through the winter to kind of help, kind of keep that kind of vibe.
So, and this guy comes in once a month.
Yeah, and does trivia as well. We have a guest trivia person here in Todd. So,
yeah, actually well, by the time they see this episode, I probably will have already done my Sunday for the month of August. But yes, I'm here the 3rd Sunday, but it's every Sunday at 3 p.m. Is that right?
Every Sunday at 3 p.m. we do trivia, and most of the time, so it's either if Todd is here doing it, he writes the trivia, and all of the other weeks, my wife Rachel actually writes the trivia.
And I know some other fun things you've done, and I remember last year you did like a movie movie night in the 4 weeks leading up to Halloween.
And we were doing that again. Yeah, so we're going to be doing all of these classic kind of out of copyright movies, so that way we can run those throughout October. Probably ending with Night of the Living Dead, and we have a host of the other ones. Yeah, that will be doing
last year.
Yeah, and I think last year we tried doing it outside. We found that the ambient light situation wasn't so great.
Right.
So instead, I think this year we're getting ready to mount a large TV up on the wall here. So we'll probably
put it right on the tube.
Put it right on the tube.
Perfect.
So watching it.
Perfect. What do you see the next, let's say, 2 to 4 years looking like?
I think there's going to be a little bit of a tightening in the industry. I'm already starting to see it, and I'm seeing some places close that I was shocked to hear. So it's kind of wild for us. But
I know you and Rachel both have your day jobs, right?
Yep.
So I remember talking to her one day, and she said, "Well, our goal is to be able to quit the day jobs." But
we'll see if that happens for now.
Okay.
Right now, I'm certainly happy to do both. I say for us, it's going to be a lot of little kind of micro adjustments and micro upgrades as we kind of add things to the brewery here. Try to find efficiency where we can, especially with the all of the issues that is happening right now within the industry. Right now, we're in the middle of a CO2 shortage. Before that,
been reading about that.
There's been grain issues. It's where it's basically you have to add an entire extra bag of grain, pretty much, basically to a batch to kind of normalize based on the difference in kind of the viability and quality of the grain.
So with that, let's talk if we can about your beer.
Yeah.
When you were starting up the brewery, what were some of your original beers? What inspired that?
So we opened with, if I recall correctly, it was a stout, a saison, and a pale ale. If I recall correctly. The pale ale kind of has been off for a while. We'll probably bring it back at some point into more of a West Coast pale.
What was that called?
Small.
Yeah,
it's got some umlauts in it. For some reason, we like umlauts. We'll talk about that later too, I'm sure.
Let's do.
So there's Swole, there was Derby Booty, and it was 2020 Vacation. That's what
right.
it was, yeah.
2020 vacation. Now,
Because
why on earth would we think of 2020 vacation?
Because none of us got
What
it.
was going on in 2020?
There was this COVID thing going on, and nobody got to go anywhere. It was like,
Permanent vacation.
So we were a little bitter about it. And the beer was like this, American stout. So it had a little bit of a decent, if I recall correctly, it was Magnum. I forget the other hop that went into it. That has not been a repeat beer because we don't want to talk about 2020 vacations anymore.
Thank you. Now that it's 2022.
Exactly. So, and then the other one was Cut Track, which is our Saison.
Right.
Those were the 3 beers that we launched with.
And I remember how your citrusy IPA, Tropical Dad Joke, you had that. Maybe not initially,
so
but
there
that
was
was soon.
Tropical Punchline.
No, Punchline. That's
And
it.
so we've had great success with kind of pushing and abusing Norwegian Farmhouse yeast a little bit. So we get we get blends of different farmhouse yeasts out of Norway, and then what we do is we've found kind of these really great temperature ranges that really bump up like all of the tropical fruit notes within the beer. The first time we came in when we were fermenting with this beer, we super underpitched the yeast to kind of like really abuse it. We were not being nice to this yeast. No, mostly because we know that if you underpitch and you kind of push the temperature range on this yeast, it's known to be very expressive.
I thought this was a Scandinavian competitive set.
No, that's just sports based.
So when you say expressive, is that just another word for explosive?
No, I mean
okay.
expressive, although explosive is another story. We find that it's very expressive, and I came in the next day, and it smelled like a tropical fruit candy company had exploded in here. It was wild. And I walked in and the whole place just smelled amazing. And I was like, it's not what I was expecting to happen, but I like it. And so we've kind of continued on that vein of really kind of trying to push the envelope with those yeasts wherever we can.
So what are the names of some of the Norwegian yeasts you're speaking about?
So there's a few of them. There's Voss, there's Hornindal, Espe, and then for our seltzer, we tend to use Lutra. We also use that if we're doing anything that wants to be like a quick turn faux lager. We'll do that as well. However, we don't actually have any of those beers on right now.
So what direction are you going to be going in the next 6 to 12 months in terms of beer that you're going to put out on the menu?
So I know that we're kind of getting to a point where we have enough, actual tanks going now that we actually have time where we can throw in lagers and let them sit for a while, and especially now that we're actually in the process of upgrading our glycol chiller right now, so we can actually manage that a little bit more effectively, and we'll basically see that we'll be able to kind of put a lager in and actually not be stressed out about having it in there for 4 to 5 weeks. So I think you're going to see
Stress because it's taking up time.
energy, and space, and kind of keeping us from, tying up tanks, when we could be making other beers.
And the patrons are banging on the beer saying, we want more. Right?
Exactly. So, we're in this position where, we're getting to a point where we're actually going to be able to, sit on tanks for a little bit. So you're going to see a bit more traditional style lagers coming out of here, which would be nice. Additionally, we upgraded some of our water filtration here over the last, 6 months, so we've got our water profile down, and we're starting to dial in, kind of rebuilding that water to where we want it. So it'll enable us to, really kind of hit those notes that we want to on those traditional waters.
So how about beers? Let's talk about the beers that you like. What are some of your favorite styles, and tell us why?
I'm really all over the place. When it comes to beer, I am all over the place. Right now, I'm definitely drinking a lot of traditional low ABV lagers. I think part of it is, you get to a point where you get a little burnt out on IPAs, especially with the way the industry's been going. It's been everywhere you go, everybody's got a list of hazy IPAs and IPAs, and there are definitely outliers to that do a good job of not doing that, but it seems to be a little ubiquitous at this point. So
yeah, I mean, you've always had IPAs on the menu here, but I know that that's not necessarily your biggest seller, right? Tell us about.
It's definitely bumped up. With Tropical Dad Joke, that's definitely always one of our top sellers. So, if we put that on, the cans will be gone in 2-3 weeks tops, and then the kegs will be gone sooner after. That's a 30-day turn beer. wow.
And
So,
your Kolsch Commander, that's always
Kolsch
been
Commander
great
is one of our
since the-
standards.
Since,
Yep.
since the outset.
Yeah.
I know that's been selling like wildfire.
and it's like, it's one of those like really good ways to like get a good traditional clean beer without necessarily having to sit on the tank. Although I'll be honest with you, the Kolsch yeast that we do use winds up being a yeast that we have to lager for a pretty long time to get it to do what we want it to do. So it's still a beer that takes 4 to 5 weeks in the tank, but we feel that the yeast that we're using, while it is a little bit more finicky and it does take a little bit more processing time at the end, we feel that it makes the best product for us.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in love with Kolsch since Chris Basso brewed it years ago over at Newburgh. I mean, and they did a really good version of the Kolsch, and I can see why it sells.
Yeah.
It's easy to drink. It's not intrusive to the tongue, or it doesn't aggravate, right?
But it still has a great flavor profile. It's still got something going on.
It's got some maltiness to it, but it's not overly malty or
Exactly.
overly.
It's a well-balanced beer, and the yeast is just a little bit expressive, where it brings like a light, like citrusy fruity note to it without being overpowering. So it's one of those things where we really appreciate the yeast that we use. Sometimes we're like, could you just hurry it up a little bit? But other than that, I think it's a great beer, and we've been in the process of scaling that recipe up and trying to keep it where it's at.
So Dave, we're here today, obviously, primarily to talk about Apex and what you're doing here, but invariably you're interacting with the other breweries in the area. If you have time, which I'm sure your time is extremely limited, but when you do, when you go out and you talk to other brewers and you visit, their tap rooms and see what they're doing, tell us, who are some of your favorite breweries and brewers in the Hudson Valley and why you like what they're doing.
I think.
Not that I'm asking you to play favorites or anything. Well, let's talk about collaborations. You recently did a collaboration with Long Lot, is that right?
Yeah, we did a collaboration with Long Lot. We've got something else coming up in the near future with another brewery that we hope happens, sometime this fall. And I might be doing something down in the state of Florida later this month. I'm trying to work the details out right now.
Is that with one of the Tampa breweries?
It is in the Tampa region. We're working that out. It's actually a friend of mine who works in the industry down there is getting married in September, so we're trying to bang out like this beer for her wedding. So that's kind of the impetus behind that.
Sounds like it's a secret for now, but
yeah,
I'm sure the secret will be out, which is great.
There will be no social media posts about that at all.
Not at all. Yeah, so tell us about Rachel. We've been sitting here talking about you. I know Rachel is an integral part to making this machinery here at the
My
brewery.
ride or die. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So Rachel is, or half pint as some people call her, she's an awesome lady. So she works in TV and movies, where she builds TV and movie sets. So she's currently at work doing that,
Getting her hands dirty and gnarled up and all sorts of stuff.
Not so much. She tends to wear gloves when she needs to, unlike me sometimes. But at the same time, she also runs the local roller derby league here in Orange County.
Yeah, what's that called?
That's called Firestorm Roller Derby. And that's.
I know they were skating over in Chester for a long while. And
the rink got pulled up, and they're doing something else with that space. They've said that they're going to be building another rink over there. I'm crossing my fingers, hoping for that. Rachel and I actually also at one point were co-owners of a roller derby team together before Firestorm with some other folks in the Hudson Valley here. And then we both moved on to doing other things. I no longer act in any ownership stand in a roller derby league because honestly I just don't have the time over it.
And so let's talk about the merch.
Yeah.
You're wearing some merch.
Yeah.
I got some merch.
Got one of our OG snapbacks on. He's got one of our new trucker hats. These we actually made ourselves. Do a lot of we still screen a lot of our own T-shirts. We have a variety of different glassware. Right now we have a lot of our kind of like pride-inspired glassware that we actually donate a portion of to the Trevor Project every year. Which is a great thing.
Yeah.
And then we've got some other kind of like collaborations with other charities coming up, which is fun. We're trying to I actually have to get some ingredients to do so, but there's going to be a suicide prevention collaboration with a New York organization coming up for early September.
Yeah, I thought I saw something on Instagram promoting that very event.
And in fact, our social media manager is out of Rochester and is actually helping spearhead that project. Her name is Danny Benjamin. She's an awesome lady. I really appreciate the work that she's doing in that space. We might even get our friend Tristan to come down and do some guest bartending for that event. For those of you who don't know, he was the guy that streaked the Buffalo Bills game and then took his notoriety and basically did charity fundraising out of it and raised money for that exact same charity.
So tell the audience, if you would, about your various social media properties. What are the addresses for your Facebook, your Instagram, and...
So for Facebook, it's Apex Brewery. For Instagram, it's Apex Beer. And I think it's Apex Beer, if I recall correctly, for...
.com?
No, Apex Beer, it's Apex Brews, B-R-E-W-S. ApexBrews.com. And then it's Apex Beer on TikTok.
So your gal, Rochester's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Fantastic. Wow.
So let's talk about
the
beer.
Yeah, let's talk about the beer we're drinking right now.
Go get yourself a glass.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll just reach back here.
Look at that. There's something waiting.
And what's interesting about my glass is, for the audience, let me bring this a little bit closer. This is actually one of the Mug Club glasses, and I'm not sure if I can... You can see my name on there, right?
It says Todd.
And so that's one of the beautiful things about being part of the Mug Club, is you get your own glass, and the moment you walk in, the bartenders and the owners here know who you are. They pull it off their shelf, put it right in front of you. So, Rich, you're drinking what?
I'm drinking the Cabana Monday, which is a Mexican lager. What
Yeah, tell us about
inspired this?
So the name for Cabana Monday comes from, there's an event every year out in Las Vegas called RollerCon. It's run by some lovely folks out in Vegas. Actually, I could get their names. That would be
Why
fun.
not?
Ivana S. Spankin and Trish the Dish. So they run this event called RollerCon, and we go out there every year and play some roller derby at the Westgate in Las Vegas. And what we do is we roll in a day early. We set up at the Cabana on Tuesday. We set up there for the whole day. And then after the whole event is over on Sunday, we basically do the same thing on Cabana Monday. All the industry folks come by, hang out. And anybody that's kind of still around will come out and hang out by the Cabana, drink a bunch of beers. And since we're in Vegas and it's usually about 110 to 115 degrees, you're not sitting out there drinking heavy IPAs.
Something a little more refreshing.
So something a little bit lighter and easier. So, we tend to sit in that kind of Modelo space, And so, this was inspired by those trips.
So you got some chili pepper or something in there?
No, so what we do is we're using a hop called Aztec. It comes out of Michigan. It's a New Mexicanos hop. It's got a little bit of a light spiciness at the end, but not so much. And then it's about 50 pounds of flaked maize as well goes into the recipe. It kind of add that a little bit of extra
some texture.
Yeah, it's a great little beer. It's about 5%. Super light, easy drinking on a hot day.
It is.
I just love it. So.
And I got the Excessive Force, which is a Belgian strong ale.
Okay.
So talk to us about how that's made.
So that's, basically it's the biggest mash that we can do in our mash tun. In fact, sometimes we have to cut the water a little bit early because we hit the top of our roll-off port. But yeah, it's the biggest mash we make. It's 9.5% right now. We do a 9.5 variant and 10.5 variant, depending on kind of where we want.
He's always high on the ABV.
Yeah.
I'm always low.
So this one's the 9.5%, and then we use a beet candy invert sugar for some of the ABV.
I'm getting a hint of that here. And you know me, the day I walked in here and saw Belgian on the menu, I went for it because I love Belgians. I even spent time going to an all Belgian beer bar in the city when I lived there.
Golden Wheat?
No, B Cafe.
Okay, cool.
75th Street.
Yep.
74th Street, I believe. Yeah. But these are fantastic beers. Also on the menu today is Late Delivery, the Kolsch Commander, which we talked about, the Booty Block, which is a pretty good American stout at 7.5%. The Excessive Force, which I have in my hand. Right now I have a guest tap on from Long Lot. I don't know if you're going to continue to have guest taps. I guess we'll see just how much comes out of your own brew house.
Exactly. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll definitely see how that nets out.
Right on. Well, listen, this has been, cheers, Rick. Sorry, Dave doesn't have a beer in his hand, but listen, this has been a great conversation, Dave. We really appreciate you spending time with us today. We'll definitely be back, to talk to some of the patrons and, your fantastic staff here, including Half Pint Hellfire Rachel, right?
Yeah.
So,
thanks for everything that you do outside of just, I've been here with guests. Some of my friends have showed up unexpectedly. and seeing the happiness on people's faces, but you're also such a big part of the community, the stuff that you're doing with charity. One of the things that Todd and I extremely love about the Hudson Valley brew community, the craft brew community, is how much these guys give back to the community because they know that they're a destination and that people are coming here and getting a flavor for who we are in the Hudson Valley. And you guys are an outstanding member of our community. So
3 cheers.
Cheers to Apex Brewery.
Dave and Rachel.
Kudos.
Again, Todd and Rich, Hudson Valley Pour. Thanks so much for joining us. See you all next time.
Drink responsibly.